The diplomatic shuttle hummed softly as it descended through the lavender skies of Varan Prime, the homeworld of a civilization far older than most human nations could comprehend. Below, the capital city of Valoria gleamed like a jewel set into the surface of a star. Endless towers of crystal and stone reaching skyward, their spires catching the light of the twin suns. Inside the shuttle, Commander Ray Donovan straightened the dark collar of his Federation dress uniform. He had never liked wearing this outfit. The stiff fabric and ceremonial pins made him feel more like a display piece than a soldier. But this mission was diplomatic, not military, and appearances mattered when stepping into a world where symbolism was everything. He leaned back, running a gloved hand over his cropped dark hair. The Federation brass had made it very clear. His presence on Varan Prime was a gesture of trust. A human face among the Varan was rare enough. A human being invited into one of their sacred estates was something else entirely. Through the viewport, the landing platforms of the Oren family estate came into view. Unlike the sleek Federation designs, the Varan favored organic architecture. The entire structure appeared to grow out of the cliffs like a living organism, a weave of translucent white stone and gold-veined crystal. As the shuttle set down with a gentle hiss, Ray's pulse quickened, though he kept his expression carefully neutral. Waiting for him at the base of the ramp was Letha Oren. She stood tall and poised, her long silver-white hair cascading down the back of a black scholar's robe trimmed in gold. Her pale blue skin caught the sunlight in a way that made her seem almost ethereal. She was no ordinary citizen. She was a historian of the old bloodlines, entrusted with the care of her ancestors' relics. "Commander Donovan," she greeted, her voice smooth and melodic. "Welcome to my home. The Council speaks highly of your service record." "Just Ray is fine," he replied, descending the ramp. "And the Council might be exaggerating." Her lips curved into a faint smile. Humility is a trait rarely found in soldiers. "I like that." They walked through corridors that glowed softly from within, the walls etched with symbols Ray could not read, but instinctively knew were important. The estate smelled faintly of something clean and floral, though he could not place it. As they moved deeper into the estate, the atmosphere changed. The corridors narrowed, the air grew cooler, and the light dimmed to a pale golden hue. Letha spoke little, but Ray could feel the weight of where they were heading. This was not a casual tour. At last, they reached a massive door carved from obsidian-like stone, covered in golden runes that pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Two temple sentinels bowed their heads as Letha placed her hand against the surface. The door opened with a soft exhale of light. "Welcome to the Vault of the Bearer," she said quietly. Ray stepped inside, and the world seemed to still. The vault was vast and circular, its ceiling painted with constellations long since forgotten by modern charts. The floor gleamed with polished black crystal, reflecting their figures like a mirror. Along the walls stood relics of an empire that had once ruled half the galaxy. Weapons, banners, scrolls, and statues of figures cloaked in flowing armor. But at the center of the chamber, on a raised platform, stood the reason for their visit: the armor of the bearer. Even from a distance, Ray felt something radiating from it. It was sleek yet ancient, forged from a dark alloy that seemed to drink in the surrounding light. Veins of gold wove through it like living rivers. Its chest plate bore a single rune, a spiral of intersecting lines that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. Letha approached it slowly, reverently. "This is the most sacred artifact of my people. It is said to have been created in the Age of Dawn, for the one chosen by the gods themselves, the bearer of balance. Every generation, warriors and priests have tried to awaken it. All have failed. For 1,000 years, it has remained silent." Ray studied it closely. "Looks like someone put a hell of a lot of faith in a piece of metal." Letha gave a soft laugh. "Faith is exactly what it demands. It only answers to the one it deems worthy. But if it is a myth, then it is a beautiful one. I grew up listening to these stories even though I never believed I would see it react in my lifetime." He turned to her, one brow raised. "What happens if someone just touches it?" She tilted her head, amused. "Nothing. Many have tried. Warriors stronger than you, priests purer, scholars wiser. It remains cold," Ray smirked. Maybe it is waiting for someone with a sense of humor. That earned him a genuine smile. Then perhaps it has been waiting for you, Commander. Go on, I dare you, he blinked. You're serious? No, she said with a teasing spark in her eyes. But watching a human touch the sacred armor will make a fine story at tomorrow's council meeting. Ray stepped onto the platform, the air buzzing faintly around him. The armor stood taller than he expected, its smooth surface flawless. He raised a hand, half expecting nothing to happen, but the moment his fingers brushed the cold metal, everything changed. The rune on the chest plate flared to life in brilliant gold. A deep vibration rolled through the vault, rattling the floor beneath their feet. Light burst from the armor in thin streams that wrapped around his wrist like living tendrils. Letha staggered back, eyes wide. Impossible. The armor lifted from its stand, weightless, its pieces unfolding and rotating in perfect synchronicity. The golden veins glowed brighter, swirling like starlight in motion. Ray tried to step back, but the armor moved with him. No, toward him. One by one, the pieces attached themselves to his body. The chest plate, the gauntlets, the boots, the mantle. Each locked into place with a sound like a heartbeat. He felt no pain, only a pulse, deep and ancient, syncing with his own. And then came the voice. It was neither male nor female, but vast, resonant, and eternal. Bearer of balance, found. The light cascaded through the chamber, the runes on the walls answering with golden fire. The constellations on the ceiling shifted, aligning into the sacred pattern described in Varen scriptures. Ray stood in silence, the armor wrapped around him like a second skin. His pulse thundered in his ears. Letha, he whispered, what's happening to me? She could barely breathe. The legends were real. The armor had chosen, not a very knight, not one of their priests or warriors. A human. Her hands trembled as she whispered, This changes everything. The vault, the relic, and the history of her people bore witness to the moment that would ignite the storm to come. The night air outside the Orin estate shimmered with the soft glow of the twin moons. From the balcony that overlooked the valley, Valoria seemed calm. A city built on harmony, its streets lit by silver lanterns, its crystal towers reflecting starlight. But inside the vault, calm had been torn apart. The temple alarms echoed like low, rhythmic drums, signaling that something had happened deep within the sacred chambers. Guards moved through the corridors with their spears of light raised high, golden armor glinting as they raced toward the source. In the center of the vault stood Ray Donovan, no longer in his stiff Federation uniform, but encased in a relic older than most recorded history. The armor of the bearer pulsed with an otherworldly light, as if breathing with him. Every breath he took was answered by a faint hum that vibrated through the room. Letha Orin could still barely comprehend what she was seeing. The armor that had defied every Varanite warrior, every high priest, every champion of the old bloodlines, had chosen a human. Letha! Ray's voice was calm, but under the surface it carried confusion and unease. I can feel it, moving inside me. It is like it knows me, like it is part of me. She took a slow step toward him, her hands raised slightly as though she were approaching a wild star beast. You need to keep your voice low. If the guards see you like this, they will not ask questions. They will not wait. He looked down at the glowing armor that now fit him like a living thing. Then maybe you should tell me how to turn it off. She shook her head, a slight tremor in her voice. No one has ever activated it. There is no off. The heavy doors of the vault burst open. A squad of temple guards flooded in, their armor silver and black, their spears aimed directly at Ray. At the front was Captain Ren Kalor, a man whose name was etched into the city's warrior halls. His sharp, angular face showed no emotion, only the rigid conviction of a soldier sworn to sacred law. What have you done, Historian Orin? His voice boomed. You allowed an outsider to defile the heirloom? Ray raised both hands slowly, palms outward. I did not defile anything. I just touched it. Ren's jaw tightened. Blasphemy. No human is worthy of the bearer's armor. It has been silent for centuries. This cannot be real, Letha stepped between them. It is real. You can see it with your own eyes. The armor chose him. Murmurs spread among the guards, their disciplined formation beginning to waver. The golden glow coming off Ray was unmistakable. It was the same light described in the ancient texts, the sign of the chosen. But for the temple, this was not a miracle. It was a disaster. The council must decide, Ren snapped. The human will be taken immediately. If he resists, he will be executed. Something shifted inside Ray. The armor responded not with fear, but with heat. The golden veins brightened, wrapping faint streams of energy around his arms and shoulders. He could feel its strength filling him, a heartbeat that was not entirely his. I am not going anywhere in chains, Ray said firmly. Letha's heart pounded in her chest. She had been trained her entire life to respect the council, to honor the temple, to uphold Varen tradition. But in this moment, seeing him standing there wrapped in living legend, she realized something fundamental had cracked in her world. This is not blasphemy, she said quietly. This is history waking up. Ren pointed his spear at Ray. Then history will burn with him. The first bolt of energy shot through the air. Ray moved without thinking. The armor guided him almost instinctively. A golden shield flared to life around him, absorbing the impact with a burst of light. The shockwave knocked several guards backward. The hum of the armor deepened, rising in pitch like a war drum. Letha grabbed Ray's arm. We need to go now, he nodded once. Together, they ran through the side corridor of the vault, the sound of alarms and shouting behind them. The estate that had always felt safe now pulsed with danger. Guards poured into the halls, their steps pounding like thunder. Letha knew the back passages better than anyone. She guided him through narrow stone tunnels that twisted beneath the estate, past storage chambers and forgotten shrines. The air grew colder as they descended. Why are they reacting like this? Ray whispered as they moved. I thought they worshipped this thing. They do, Letha said, her voice steady despite the chaos. That is why they fear it. They always believed the bearer would come from among us. A human being wearing it breaks everything they believe in. They will not see you as chosen. They will see you as a threat. They emerged into a lower hangar carved into the cliffside. An old skycraft rested in the corner, half covered in dust sheets. It was not Federation quality, but it would fly. She ran to the controls, Letha, Ray said softly. You do not have to do this. I can surrender. I can talk to them. She spun around, fire in her pale eyes. They will not talk, Ray. The moment they bring you before the council, they will strip the armor from your body, even if it kills you. And they will bury the truth. I will not let that happen. Outside, distant sirens wailed across the city as the temple forces tightened their net. Letha powered up the old skycraft, its engines rumbling weakly but alive. She looked at Ray, a human soldier wearing the most sacred artifact of her people. In one night, the world had been turned upside down. Get in, she said. From this moment on, you are a fugitive, and so am I. The hatch sealed shut, and the skycraft lifted off the platform, vanishing into the cold night beyond the crystal domes of Valoria. Behind them, the city burned with whispers. The bearer had returned, and he was human. The wastelands beyond Valoria stretched out beneath a pale silver sky. Jagged spires of rock pierced the horizon like broken teeth, and wind swept across the desert with a hollow, mournful sound. It was a place Varenites avoided, a land of silence and ruins where the old cities had crumbled into dust. The stolen skycraft skimmed low over the sands, its engines growling as it cut through the night. Inside the cockpit, Letha Oren sat at the controls, her hands steady despite the chaos they had fled. Her eyes, however, betrayed something else, the weight of a lifetime of beliefs cracking beneath her feet. Ray sat beside her. The armor still fused to his body, though its glow had softened into faint golden veins that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. He stared out the viewport, watching the distant glow of Valoria fade into darkness behind them. I never thought, Letha began softly, that I would be hunted by my own people. Ray's voice was calm, though his hands were clenched on his knees. I never thought I would be wearing your most sacred relic. Seems like we are both living someone else's story. For a moment, silence filled the cockpit, broken only by the low hum of the engines. The armor had been quiet since their escape, but Ray could feel its presence. It was not just metal. It was alive in some strange, ancient way. At times he felt a pulse, almost like another heartbeat layered over his own. At others, he swore he heard faint whispers at the edge of his mind, Not words, not exactly, but intentions. Memories without language. Does it hurt? Letha asked suddenly. He shook his head slowly. No, it is strange. It feels like it is watching me. Like it is waiting for something. Letha's gaze hardened. The temple will not stop. The council will brand you a heretic. They will twist this into a story of defilement to protect their version of history. We will not be safe anywhere near the cities. Ray turned to her. Then where are we going? She stared out at the wasteland, her voice low. To the places they want everyone to forget. To where the truth still sleeps. Hours passed as they flew deeper into the wilds, far beyond the reach of Valoria's signal beacons. Eventually, the jagged cliffs gave way to a valley choked in mist, where the remnants of ancient structures rose from the sand, like the bones of giants. Letha guided the skycraft down to a hidden landing pad carved beneath a collapsed bridge. As they stepped out, the cold air bit into their skin. The ruins loomed around them, toppled pillars, shattered domes, and broken statues of figures wearing armor, much like the one Ray bore now. The place was quiet, except for the whispering wind threading through the stones. Letha led him toward a massive archway carved into the rock. These ruins, she said, her voice hushed, are from the first age of the Varen before the Council, before the Faith. My people call it the Hollow Era. Here the armor was forged. Ray ran his fingers along the cracked stone, tracing faded symbols that seemed oddly familiar. The armor responded, glowing faintly where he touched. The same symbol appeared beneath his palm, like the ruins themselves recognized him. Letha, he said, this place. It knows me. She stopped walking, her breath catching for just a moment. The armor is old, Ray. It carries memories in its very structure. It remembers the first bearer. It remembers everything. They moved deeper into the ruins, past fallen corridors and blackened walls scorched by a war long forgotten. In one of the chambers, the walls were covered in murals. Faded, cracked, but still visible. Ray lifted a torchlight and Letha stepped forward, her hands trembling as she brushed dust away. The mural depicted Varenites standing beside figures that were not Varen at all. Tall, broad with familiar human-like shapes. Humans, Ray whispered. Letha nodded slowly. This cannot be right. We were told the Varen fought alone, that we stood as the sole guardians of balance. But these figures, these are your people. Humans were here. As the truth began to settle in the silence of the ruins, Ray felt the whispers again, louder this time. Images flashed in his mind, warships tearing through star fields, warriors of two races standing shoulder to shoulder, a blinding light surging through the armor. He staggered, gripping the wall for balance. Letha rushed to him. Ray, what is it? He sucked in a shaky breath. I saw something, a war, a man wearing this armor. But he was not Varenite. He was human, just like me. She stared at him as though she were looking at a ghost. The ground rumbled faintly, and both of them froze. The ruins were not as empty as they appeared. Shapes moved in the shadows, cloaked figures stepping out from behind broken pillars. Their faces were hidden, but their weapons were not. Outcasts, Letha whispered. They live here. The broken, the banished, those who turned their backs on the council. A tall figure stepped forward, lowering his hood. His skin was pale, his eyes sharp. A scar cut across his cheek. The armor, he rasped. The stories were true. Letha took a step back, but Ray did not. The armor pulsed again, faint but firm, like a living heartbeat echoing through the stones. The outcasts knelt one by one. Bearer, the leader said. We have waited a long time. Ray felt the weight of their eyes on him. In this place where history had been buried, the armor's return was not blasphemy. It was prophecy. Letha exhaled slowly, her gaze fixed on Ray. Then the council was wrong all along. Above them, the sky groaned with distant thunder. Something was moving in the stars. The journey had begun, and the past was no longer willing to stay silent. The outcasts led them through a network of tunnels carved deep into the heart of the ruined city. The air grew colder with every step, heavy with the scent of stone and age. Strange markings lined the walls, spirals, suns, constellations. The flickering torches cast dancing shadows, making the symbols seem alive, whispering to those who dared to listen. Ray walked silently beside Letha, the hum of the armor thrumming softly under his skin. It wasn't just attached to him anymore. It felt like part of him. Like a second skin that remembered a world he'd never seen. The outcast leader, the scarred man, moved ahead without speaking. His people followed in reverent silence. When they reached the central chamber, the tunnel opened into a massive cavern, a forgotten cathedral carved entirely into black stone. At the center stood a colossal structure half buried in rubble, a throne of obsidian, wrapped in tangled metal vines. And behind it, a wall of carving stretching higher than any cathedral Ray had ever seen. Letha's breath caught in her throat. "By the stars," she whispered. "This is impossible." Ray stepped forward slowly. The carvings showed scenes that made his stomach twist. The Varen were not alone. Human warriors stood beside them, wielding the same armor that now clung to Ray's body. Together they faced something vast and shapeless, a storm of darkness with eyes like suns. The scarred leader finally spoke. His voice was low, roughened by time. "They erased this from the archives, burned the truth to keep their power. But we remember. We are the keepers of the Hollow Era." Letha turned to him sharply. "Why hide it? Why bury something this important?" The man's eyes narrowed. "Because unity is dangerous to those who build thrones on fear." Ray's gaze locked on one figure carved larger than the rest. A human standing at the front lines, wearing the exact same armor. His features were worn down by time, but there was no mistaking it. This man wasn't just a warrior. He was the first bearer. The scarred man walked closer to Ray. "The armor chooses only once in 1,000 years. Not because it serves the Varen, not because it serves the humans. It serves the bond between them. It is a relic of an alliance, not a faith." Ray's pulse pounded in his ears. "So, all of this, the temple, the council, the rituals, they're built on a lie?" "Not a lie," the man said. "A half-truth. The most dangerous kind." Letha lowered her eyes. All her life she had believed in the sanctity of the temple, in the divine purity of her people's role as guardians of the stars. To see it reduced to politics and power plays shattered something deep inside her. "They turned a promise into a crown," she murmured bitterly. "And the people. We worshipped it." The scarred man approached Ray, studying the soft gold veins that pulsed through the armor. "If the armor has chosen you, then the storm will return soon. It always does. The ancient darkness sleeps in the rift, and when it stirs, the bearer must lead the bond. That is the prophecy." Ray clenched his fists. He was just a soldier, an off-worlder dragged into a holy war he didn't understand. And yet something inside him, something older, felt steady. "Then tell me everything. No more riddles." The outcasts exchanged uncertain glances. Then the leader nodded. They gathered around the base of the throne. The ground shook faintly as old mechanisms came alive, shifting the stone. A circular platform descended slowly, revealing a hidden chamber below, lined with crystalline pillars glowing softly like captured starlight. At the center floated a sarcophagus of silver and black, humming with the same rhythm as Ray's armor. "This," the leader said, "is the resting place of the first bond, a human and a Varanite. Buried together." Letha's eyes widened. "Together?" The man nodded. They were not just warriors. They were bonded, a connection of mind and soul. That bond was what allowed the armor to wield its full power. Alone, it is just a weapon. Together, it becomes a bridge between worlds. Ray felt the armor tighten around his chest as if reacting to the story. The air itself seemed heavier now, the chamber alive with a presence he could not name. He took a step closer to the sarcophagus and felt a sudden surge of energy rush through him. Memories not his own flashing like lightning. He saw a battlefield under two suns, a woman with silver skin and obsidian hair standing beside a human man. Their hands met and the storm broke open like a dying star. Their bond had been their strength, not blood, not power. Ray stumbled back, gasping. Letha caught his arm instinctively, steadying him. Their eyes met, her blue against his dark. For a moment, the hum of the armor matched the rhythm of their breaths. The leader's voice was soft now. "Do you understand, bearer? The armor does not just choose a warrior. It chooses a pair. One Varen, one human. That is how the bond is awakened." Letha stiffened at his words, but she didn't let go of Ray's arm. Ray whispered, almost to himself. A bond. Not chains, the man said. Not command. A bond of trust. A bridge strong enough to hold back the darkness when it returns. Above them, the ruins groaned again, distant thunder rolling across the sky. A tremor rippled through the ground. Dust rained from the cavern ceiling. The storm that had been sleeping was beginning to wake. The leader's eyes hardened. The council will hunt you both. But they are not the only threat. The rift stirs. The old enemy returns. You must decide soon whether to stand together or fall like they did before. Ray glanced at Letha. She wasn't just a guide anymore. She was part of whatever was coming, whether she chose it or not. And in that dark, ancient chamber, beneath the weight of lost history, a quiet decision formed between them. The storm was coming. And they would face it, together. The first tremor hit like the breath of a giant rumbling through the underground ruins with a low growl. Dust cascaded from the carved ceiling. The torches flickered wildly, throwing erratic shadows across the ancient carvings. Ray steadied himself against one of the crystalline pillars as the hum of the armor surged like a living heartbeat beneath his skin. Something was awakening, something vast, and far older than the war between human and Varen. Letha's sharp blue eyes snapped to the scarred leader. What is happening? He did not answer immediately. His jaw tightened, and his hands clenched the haft of his staff. The rift, he finally whispered. The hollow star stirs. A shiver ran through Ray's spine. He didn't need to ask what that meant. The armor already knew. It vibrated against his body like a drum, resonating with a force that wasn't just energy. It was memory. The ground shook again, harder this time. Far above, something groaned, like the crust of the world itself crying out. From the tunnel they had entered earlier came faint echoes of alarmed voices. The outcasts rushed to the entrance, their eyes wide with a fear too old to be explained. The leader turned to Ray and Letha. You have woken the bond, and the hollow star has felt it. It remembers the bearer. It remembers the war, Letha frowned. The council must have felt it too. They will not protect you, the leader said flatly. They will protect themselves, Ray's jaw tightened. Then we need to move, now. They raced through the tunnels as tremors rippled beneath their feet. When they emerged from the cavern mouth into the ruined city, the night sky was no longer calm. The twin moons of Varen Prime hung half-shrouded by thick, swirling clouds of black. It was not a natural storm. It moved with intent. Lightning flickered inside it. Not gold, not white, but void black streaks that bent the air itself. Letha stared at the horizon. No, this cannot be real. From the distant capital, Valoria, columns of bright light shot into the sky, the council's defense systems activating. The entire skyline glowed in alarm red. Even from the wastelands, the emergency sirens reached them like a distant wail. Ray's armor reacted on its own. Thin golden patterns blazed brighter across his arms and chest. His breathing grew shallow as thousands of sensations flooded him at once. Whispers, pulses, memories from the armor's long-forgotten battles. He staggered for a second. Letha caught his arm firmly. Ray, she said sharply, look at me. Not at the storm. His gaze snapped to hers. Her steady voice grounded him in the moment. The noise in his head dulled just enough to breathe again. The scarred leader approached, handing Ray a short blade forged of some strange black alloy. This is a fragment of the First War. It answers only to the bearer. Take it. You will need it. Ray gripped the hilt tightly. Felt familiar, like it belonged to him even though he had never seen it before. The armor pulsed in agreement. Where does it come from? Ray asked. The leader's eyes darkened. From the last man who stood where you stand now. The wind picked up sharply, scattering ash and sand across the ruins. In the distance, a glowing shape began to emerge at the storm's heart, a sphere of dark light pulsing like a heartbeat. Every pulse dimmed the stars a little more, Letha whispered under her breath. The hollow star. The leader's voice hardened. It was never truly defeated, only sealed, and the seal weakens every time the armor awakens. Letha took a step forward. We have to warn the council. They will not listen, the leader said coldly. To them, the human is still an imposter. They will turn their weapons on him before they face the truth. Letha squared her shoulders. Then we will make them listen. Ray glanced at her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "You do not owe me this." She met his gaze without flinching. "I owe the truth more than I owe the council." A deep roar rolled across the land, vibrating through their bones. From the edge of the storm, something colossal unfurled. Black tendrils like rivers of liquid night stretching toward the city. Valoria's defense cannons opened fire, launching bolts of energy that vanished into the darkness like pebbles into a sea. Ray's armor responded instinctively. Shimmering golden field enveloped him for a moment, and the whispers turned into a clear voice. "Bearer." "The balance must be held," he gritted his teeth. "Then show me how." The armor flared brighter. Golden light arced from his body like wings unfolding, brief, dazzling, and ancient. The outcasts fell to their knees, whispering reverent words in their language. Letha stepped closer to him, the wind whipping her black hair around her face. "Ray," she said over the storm, "the vault of echoes is gone. Whatever happens now, it is us." Ray exhaled slowly. "Then we face it." A distant explosion lit up the capital. A black tendril slammed into one of the outer domes, shattering it like glass. The screams carried faintly even across the wasteland. The leader raised his staff. "You must go to Valoria. The bearer stands at the heart of the storm, always," Ray nodded. "We'll need a way in." The leader pointed to a cluster of hidden transport bikes beneath the ruins, sleek and fast, built for war. "Take them, and may the bond hold." As Ray mounted the bike, Letha swung on behind him, her arms wrapped tightly around his waist. The golden glow of the armor illuminated her face in the darkness. "You ready?" Ray asked, his voice steady. She tightened her grip. "I was born in that city. I will not watch it fall." The engines roared to life, and the two of them sped into the night, toward the burning capital and the storm that would decide everything. Above them, the hollow star pulsed once more, spreading its shadow like a veil across the world. The war that had once ended was about to begin again. And this time, the bearer was human. The storm was no longer on the horizon. It had swallowed the capital whole. Valoria's once glimmering spires were silhouettes against a sky consumed by a black void. The hollow star hung over the city like a wound in the fabric of the universe, pulsing with cold hunger. Its tendrils coiled through the air, consuming everything they touched. The proud crystal domes of the Varan shone weakly beneath its shadow, their shields flickering and failing one by one. Ray's transport bike screamed through the night, cutting through waves of wind and ash. Letha's arms were wrapped tight around him, her face pressed against his back, but her eyes stayed fixed on the storm ahead. The armor's golden glow reflected in her pupils like the last spark of light in a dying world. As they reached the outer perimeter, they could see the chaos below. Varan soldiers fired volley after volley into the darkness. Their energy beams vanished into the hollow star's tendrils without leaving a mark. Civilians were fleeing through shattered streets, their cries lost under the roar of the storm. Ray brought the bike to a screeching stop at the edge of the ruined plaza. The once grand hall of Ascendance, the council's heart, was nothing more than a jagged shell. The High Council's banners flapped in the storm, torn and meaningless now. "They are losing," Letha said quietly. "They already lost," Ray answered. The armor pulsed against his chest, not in pain this time, but in recognition. A deep, calm voice filled his mind. "Bearer, the hollow star remembers. The end must be as it was before." At the heart, Ray looked toward the core of the storm. The hollow star's center burned with a twisted light. "I have to go in." Letha's hand caught his wrist. "Then I am going with you." He turned to her. There was no hesitation in her eyes. No doubt, only fierce, unwavering loyalty. "Letha," he said softly. "If I fail, you will not," she interrupted. "And if you fall, then I will fall beside you." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The world roared around them, but between their gazes there was silence, a promise carved deeper than words. Then Ray nodded. "Let's finish this." They sprinted toward the center of the plaza. The armor responded to Ray's determination, flaring to full brilliance. Golden lines raced across the ground as the armor resonated with the storm itself. The hollow star sensed him. It let out a sound that was not a roar but 1,000 whispers layered together, ancient and venomous. The first tendril came like a whip of liquid shadow. Ray raised his arm instinctively. The armor reacted with him, projecting a blazing shield that cracked the air like thunder. The impact threw dust and debris into the air, but he stood his ground. Another tendril struck, and another. The plaza became a storm of black and gold. The hollow star's darkness pressed like a tidal wave, but Ray moved with a precision that did not feel human. It was instinct, guided by the memory of every bearer before him. Each swing of his blade cut through the darkness like the first light of dawn. Letha fought beside him. She had no armor, no ancient power, but she moved with purpose, cutting down lesser shades, guiding Ray through collapsing streets, shielding his blind spots. The bond between them was unspoken but absolute. She trusted him completely, and he leaned on that trust like a blade through the void. They reached the base of the Hall of Ascendance. The structure was cracked open like an egg. Inside, the hollow star's heart pulsed, a swirling sphere of black fire surrounded by floating fragments of ancient Varanite stone. The council stood at the edges, broken and desperate. Some were praying, others were arguing. None were fighting. When they saw Ray, their voices rose in panic. "He brought this." One of them shouted, "He is the reason it awoke." Another spat. Letha turned on them like a storm herself. "No, he is the only reason you are still breathing." Her words silenced them more than any weapon could have. She did not wait for their response. She followed Ray into the hall. The hollow star shifted. A tendril speared forward, slamming into Ray's chest. For a heartbeat, everything went black. Then the armor responded with a surge of golden flame. The tendril shattered into nothing. "Bearer," the voice inside Ray whispered. "The balance must be restored. Let go of what was. Become what must be." Ray stepped into the storm's heart. The world melted into pure energy. He was no longer in the hall, but in a vast memory. Stars burning and falling, ancient warriors clashing, the first bearer standing alone against the hollow star. The armor did not show him this. It became him. It showed him how to win. He let the power flow, not as a weapon, but as a promise. Back in the real world, the armor erupted in blinding light. Letha shielded her eyes as the hollow star screamed, a sound like every shadow in existence being torn apart. Golden energy poured from Ray, weaving through the darkness like sunlight through storm clouds. The tendrils disintegrated, the black core fracturing with each pulse. But the armor was burning itself out. It was giving everything. Letha rushed forward, calling his name, but she could not reach him. The golden light formed a barrier around him. He floated slightly above the shattered floor, eyes blazing with the same radiance as the armor itself. The hollow star lunged in a final, desperate strike. Ray drove the blade into its heart. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then the storm collapsed inward, a black sun imploding into itself. A wave of golden light washed over the capital, pushing back the darkness, mending the sky, silencing the storm. The hollow star's scream faded into nothing. The armor dimmed. Ray fell. Letha caught him before he hit the ground. His breath was shallow. The once blazing armor was crumbling into fragments of gold dust. A single shard remained glowing faintly against his chest. Tears blurred her vision. "You did it," she whispered. "You brought balance." He looked at her, a faint smile touching his lips. "We did." The shard pulsed once, then dissolved into her hand, leaving behind a small, smooth fragment. A bracelet of light wrapped around her wrist. His eyes fluttered shut as the last of the armor vanished. Above them, the sky was clear for the first time in centuries. Golden light painted the ruins of Valoria. People emerged slowly from hiding, their faces bathed in warmth instead of shadow. Days later, the city rebuilt in silence and reverence. Statues rose in the plaza, not of gods or kings, but of the human and the Varan girl, who stood against the darkness together. Letha stood alone on a high balcony, the golden fragment still around her wrist. She gazed at the sunrise, her heart heavy and full. She whispered softly, "You were chosen because you were you." Far beyond the stars, something stirred. A faint whisper of the armor's voice echoing in the void. Not a warning, a promise. The legend of the bearer of balance had just begun.